Hey! Hey everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing Batman and Robin. Batman versus Robin. Take a look at this comic cover right here. Now, Batman versus Robin is the second volume in the Batman and Robin series, and it picks up exactly where Volume 1 leaves off. Now, there's two story arcs in this trade. The first one is the Blackest Night story arc. No, not the Blackest Night event like N-I-G-H-T. No, it's like Blackest Night K. N-I-G-H-T. Like Dark Knight, you know, like Batman. Anyways, that's the first story arc. The second story arc is the Batman versus Robin story arc. So, with that said, let's just jump into the story. The first story starts off with Batman teaming up with Knight and Squire in England trying to find a Lazarus Pit. The reason why they're looking for a Lazarus Pit is because Dick Grayson wants to throw the skeletal remains of Bruce Wayne, found at Final Crisis, into this Lazarus Pit and bring him back to life. Along the way, they also team up with Batwoman, who conveniently gets put into England. But anyways, moving on. Damian Wayne, at the same time, is getting a brain-spanking new spine. Because if you remember from Volume 1, his spine was pretty much shot to pieces. And he needs a new one, or he'll just be dead. Or paralyzed. One of the two. Yeah. Anyways, he gets a brand spanking new spine, and he's sent back to Gotham. But he can't be too extraneous on his spine, or he could be paralyzed. Alfred also finds out what Dick Grayson is doing, and, well, Alfred doesn't improve, but who gives a shit. Anyways, Dick Grayson throws the skeletal remains of Batman into the Lazarus Pit. And lo and behold, a few minutes later, pops out Batman. But it's not Batman. No. Go back to Final Crisis, if you read Final Crisis. The skeletal remains that Superman is carrying out, which Dick Grayson just threw into the Lazarus Pit, are not actually Bruce Wayne. See, one of the plot points for Final Crisis is that Bruce Wayne was captured by Darkseid and his minions, and that they were basically trying to make clones of Bruce Wayne to make the ultimate army. Maybe not in sheer power and force, but in intellect and strategic genius. However, it didn't work because, well, it's the Batman and he foiled their plans. However, they had all these different Batman clones and bodies left over, and they didn't know what to do with it. Darkseid told them to throw away all but one of them because he had plans for that one body. Now, those plans that Darkseid had for that body aren't really revealed at all in this specific story, or this trade at all. But if you're reading the current Grant Morrison stuff, specifically the Return of Bruce Wayne, and up to issue 15 or 16 of Batman and Robin, you get to see how all this kind of tangles up together. Anyways, that's a different plot point for a different time. I'm not going to get into it. Anyway, so this skeletal remain of a clone of Bruce Wayne pops out of Lazarus Pit, and he's like, "Hey guys, let's party, let's play some Wii." No, he doesn't do that. For the sake of this story and this review, I'm going to refer to this clone of Bruce Wayne as Cloney, just so that there's no confusion. There's way too many Batmans roaming around. So anyways, Cloney pops out and he's pissed off. And of course, he attacks the first person he sees, which is, well, Batman. See, the thing is, he's so screwed up, and he's just an imperfect clone. It's probably because Darkseid forced all the clones to watch Voyager and watch the Star Wars prequels, you know, to break them down, like torture and stuff. But anyways, this clone is just absolutely screwed up, imperfect, and he's just going to town on everyone. Eventually, Cloney runs off like a little scared girl, and he has his own plans to do. Not before causing a cave-in which mortally wounds Batwoman, and, well, it doesn't look good for her. Cloney gets into the Batjet and flies back to Wayne Industries, where he wants to pay a visit to his son, or who he thinks is his son, Damian Wayne, Robin. Exactly what he's going to do with Damian, exactly what Damian's going to do with him, and exactly how Batman, Batwoman, Knight and Squire are going to get out of the mess that they're in, well, I'll leave you to read that and to see. The second story is Batman versus Robin. And this story arc is different from the first story in that it is not so much an action-based story arc, rather it's more of a plot-driven story arc. And it deals more with the stuff that Grant Morrison is trying to tell in his Batman story, his epic Batman stuff that he's doing. See, in this story arc, Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne come to the conclusion that Batman is still alive. You know, Bruce Wayne, not cloning. The reason why they come to this conclusion is because the skeletal remains they threw into the pit were obviously not Bruce Wayne, so that means he has to be alive. Yeah, isn't that what Tim Drake has been telling you the whole entire time? I don't want to jump into this yet because I'm not quite to the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it, but it kind of pisses me off that they spent so much time with Tim Drake going around proving that Bruce Wayne is alive, and Dick Grayson just kind of comes to the conclusion on his own. But anyways, moving on. So they decide to look around Wayne Manor and find clues. Now at first this kind of bothered me because throughout this whole entire story, they find all these various clues in Wayne Manor, which have been left there for a long time. But how they could have been left there because there was the earthquake in Gotham that just basically decimated everything. Of course, Grant Morrison must have thought ahead and said that the earthquake only affected one or two parts of the Wayne Manor and basically everything else was untouched. So, anyways, moving on. Batman and Robin are searching for clues that Bruce Wayne is still alive, and at the same time, while Talia al Ghul is not happy with her son still wanting to be Robin, she implanted some mechanical gizmo shitty stuff in his spine and takes control of his body, attempting to murder Dick Grayson, Batman. However, due to certain events and stuff happening, Dick Grayson is separated from Robin, and Robin is basically trying to figure out what's going down with him. Talia al Ghul implores the help of a former villain of Dick Grayson to help take out the mighty Batman by controlling Damian Wayne's body. At the same time, Batman needs to find out exactly what happened to Bruce. Will Robin be successful in killing Batman? Or not so much Robin, but Talia al Ghul and her minions? Or will Batman prevail and they will find the secret to exactly what happened to Bruce Wayne? Well, you're just going to have to read and see. So on to the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it. Let's start things off with good, as we always do. Most of the time. Good! Well, the writing is great in this. Grant Morrison is really showing his perfection of craft in this one. Much better than the first volume. And in saying that, I enjoyed this volume a little bit more than the first volume, and I'll get into that a little bit later on exactly why. This, although divulges a lot more into the stuff that Grant Morrison is doing right now with Batman, particularly the material that is shown in the Batman vs. Robin story arc. The clues, the subtle hints, the atmosphere, the scenery, the stuff that happens. May not seem big at first, but once you read The Return of Bruce Wayne and later Batman and Robin issues, you really get to see how it all connects together. And it's really nice that all these clues are thrown down. One of my complaints with the first Batman and Robin story arc is it was kind of just standalone. It really didn't contribute that much to Grant Morrison's overall Batman stuff. So this does, and it leaves a lot of nice clues. I really like to see how these characters are evolving. Dick Grayson is starting to fall into the role of Batman very nicely, although he's not doing it as well as he is in some of the other Batman titles like Streets of Gotham and Tony Daniels stuff that he's been doing with Batman. Grant Morrison tends to view the Batman and Robin series more or less to tell its overall story, and the characters in it are more or less telling Bruce's story, whether you see it or you don't. Out of all the characters, though, the one that probably gets the most development and the most spotlight on them is Damian Wayne. And while I do wish there was a balance between Damian Wayne and Dick Grayson, I do like the fact that they're actually making Damian Wayne a likable character. I'm not 100% completely sold on Damian Wayne being Robin, but the stuff that we see in here really makes me want to believe that he can be Robin. He's a character that really wants to actually do good. Sure, he's had a crappy upbringing, but from the role models he's been around lately, particularly Dick Grayson, he wants to be Robin. He wants to step into the role of a hero. And I do like what they're doing with Damian Wayne. So, that was cool. I also like how they dealt with the whole skeleton of Bruce Wayne. Although they probably took too long to do it, it was kind of cool to see it go down. And also having a nice big team up with everyone was nice too. So, with that said, let's jump into the bad. Well, the first bad is that this story in of itself, if you're picking it up as a standalone story, you're not going to get it there. This contributes more to the overall Grant Morrison stories, and it does a good job at that. But as a standalone story, it's just okay. In addition to that, the team up, while it was nice to have Batwoman and Knight and Squire show up, it felt as though they really didn't contribute all too much. Batwoman more so than Knight and Squire. A lot of people are getting into this praise about how much they love Knight and Squire, and while I do see them as characters with potential, they really haven't impressed me overly that much lately. Maybe it's just me. Everyone has their own little likes and dislikes, and whatever floats everyone's boats. But I just felt as though Knight and Squire, if they're going to be in this team up with Batman, they should have got more exposure. They should have got more of a role. Batwoman definitely stole the show when it came down to the guest stars of the comic. So that was kind of a bad. That and this, again, some of it is a little bit predictable. Exactly who is Oberon Saxon, if I'm saying his name is right, or exactly what happens to clone Bruce Wayne, or who is the person that is working with Talia al Ghul. Some of the stuff is predictable in that. The stuff that is outside of Grant Morrison's Batman clues that he's leaves. And when I say Batman clues, I mean exactly Dr. Hurt and Bruce Wayne and all that stuff. That stuff is fine. But certain stuff like who is this guy or who's working with this person or what happens here, it seems a little all too predictable. So that was a little bit of a bad too. But those are only very few bads, and there's not that much. So moving on to whether or not you should get it. Yes, I do highly recommend this. This was far superior to the first Batman and Robin story arc, or at least volume. The first Batman and Robin volume is great as a standalone Batman and Robin trade. You can read that and you don't need to read anything else that's gone on with Batman and Robin. However, Volume 2 is a lot more enjoyable, at least for me, because it divulges more into the stuff that Grant Morrison is doing as a whole with his Batman material. Specifically like the return of Bruce Wayne and the later issues of Batman and Robin. You get to see the rituals that are done by Dr. Hurt. You get to see the character of Dr. Hurt get a little bit more backstory in them. You get to see exactly what periods of time Bruce has been shifting through. All these stuff seems very subtle at first, but when you look at everything at the grand scheme of things that Grant Morrison is trying to do, they all fall into place very nicely. And I have to give Grant Morrison props for that. If you are trying to pick this up, however, as a standalone Batman stuff, you probably won't enjoy it quite as much as the first volume. You might be a little bored with the second story arc, which I do think is the better of the two story arcs. But again, this is more comparable to, like, Batman the Black Glove, in that, on its own, it's not that overly amazing, but in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty damn good. And in saying that, I do recommend everyone to pick this up. There are a few problems here and there, but the problems are really minor. I probably built them up to be more than it is. For example, who Oberon Saxon is. If you looked at the clues, you could easily guess who it is. But it's not that big of a problem. Or who is working with Talia al Ghul and is controlling Damian Wayne. Again, if you look at the clues, if you kind of think it through, you probably know who he is. And they even reveal a little bit through it. But it's not that big of a deal. So the smalls are, the bads are exactly small. They're not even worth pointing out at compared to all the goods. So the good stuff definitely outweighs the bad, and this is a good volume to get. I do recommend picking this up, especially if you picked up Volume 1 or if you have been following Grant Morrison's Batman stuff recently. So, with that said, I'm going to end this review here. Batman and Robin. Batman versus Robin. It's a must-buy. This is Andrew saying, peace out for now.